Bangkok, a Chinese Communist Party-owned newspaper has published an article warning that Australia's interference in the flashpoint waters of the South China Sea may prompt China to adopt strong countermeasures which will seriously impact Australian economic development. Zhang Yi, a researcher at the Chinese Naval Research Institute in Beijing, wrote in the hawkish Global Times that Australia's kissing up to the United States will poison its relations with China and shake up the foundation for its strategic balance between China and the US. Between its strategic location and wealth of natural resources, the hotly contested South China Sea could become a flashpoint for major conflict. California has now joined a list of other US states and the District of Columbia, where so-called recreational marijuana is now permitted. Spanish national law for wine defines three kinds: red, white and rose. But one winemaker is fighting to have his unconventional drink recognized. Israel's intelligence minister voiced encouragement for Iranian anti-government protesters as Iranian state TV reports 10 protesters were killed on Sunday. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un had a warning for the US but an olive branch for South Korea during a New Year's Day address to the nation. Firework displays dazzled onlookers in cities all around the world as people welcomed in the new year. A plane crash in Costa Rica killed 10 US citizens and 2 local pilots, the Costa Rican government said. 5 deputies have been shot, with 1 fatally wounded after they responded to a report of a domestic disturbance in Denver. Between its strategic location and wealth of natural resources, the hotly contested South China Sea could become a flashpoint for major conflict. Australia has changed its policy considerably. Its bigoted actions have jeopardized not only China's national interests but also Australian long-term interests, bringing Canberra's structural contradictions and strategic dilemma to a worse level, Zhang wrote. The comments come 2 weeks after China's top naval commander formally rebuked Australia's Chief of Navy, Tim Barrett, over Australia's policy on the waterways, where China and 5 other countries have overlapping territorial claims. The rebuke was partly in response to Australian Navy ships crossing into the South China Sea during multinational military exercises in September. In early December, Beijing's Ministry of Foreign Affairs summoned Australia's ambassador to China, January Adams, for an official rebuke over revelations that China had meddled in Australia's political system, prompting the Turnbull government to introduce new laws to counter foreign interference. And in November China lashed Australia over its foreign policy white paper, saying remarks on the South China Sea were irresponsible. Get the latest news and updates emailed straight to your inbox. By submitting your email you are agreeing to Fairfax Media's terms and conditions and privacy policy. In a New Year article, Zhang accused Australia of a double standard by supporting a 2006 finding brought by the Philippines under the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea that China has no historical rights to the South China Sea. However, when Australia dealt with its own conflict with the Timor-Leste, East Timor, over a sea border, it took a contrary stance and claimed all the results of the arbitration were meaningless and unacceptable, he said.